God is opening up doors for Christians to make a difference in Tucson schools in unprecedented ways.
In the summer of 2015, over 2 weekends in July, almost 100 Tucson churches participated in an initiative to worship God through serving our schools. Over 1,100 volunteers came together to work alongside over 100 schools in 7 school districts.
This summer, we are aiming to see as many schools touched as possible. When the church comes together, the world notices. Let us show through our actions what unconditional love looks like.
What will you do to serve our schools? Every part matters, every student matters, every school matters.
Today's topic, we are going to be turning our attention to thinking about things that apply directly to younger generations. So I want you to watch a video that Mike Beer has put together.
Hi, my name is Jason, and I'm a senior at the U of A. If I could say anything to the church in Tucson, I would want to say thank you. I've been here for 4 years now, and I've just been so blessed and just seeing the love of Christ and abundant grace. And I came here as really just a baby Christian, didn't really know the Lord that well, and I'm leaving well established in my faith because of the support and the encouragement and the love that I've felt from many of you. So I'd like to thank each of you for that.
Hi, my name is Joe, and the past few years my view of ministry in Tucson has basically just to get into streets and be among people and serve them in any way possible through cleaning up homeless ministries or just random events, and just getting to know the culture and the people here to figure out how to best serve them and best way to spread the kingdom and the gospel to them. And I just want to encourage people all over the place to just be present in their communities and find out ways to give of themselves to just best serve the community around them.
I think our conception of God needs to be constantly evolving and constantly going through little deaths and resurrections as we are drawn deeper into who God is. And I think, we have this traditional idea of finding God in the Bible, and I think there's a lot of truth in the Bible, but maybe we also need to consider how God is revealed in other arenas of life, like in a science textbook or in an architecture magazine or in a song. Because I think God's everywhere.
Hi, I'm Brooke, and I am a Tucsonan, and probably 4 or 5 years ago I wouldn't have said that because I wasn't sure if I really belonged in this community. I was a student at the university and realized that maybe there are opportunities for me to make a difference here, and instead of sitting around and waiting for those opportunities to kind of land at my doorstep, I realized that, you just need to go out and find a friend, someone else who has a similar passion as you. You need to take time to listen to others and their vision, and take time to listen to God and what He has in store for you, and go make it happen.
I'm Kendra. I'm native Tucsonan, so I've seen a lot of shift in our community. I've seen my generation living out of a place of lack, which is not God's heart. My prayer for our community, for my generation, is that we would experience His heart. Christ came to give life and life abundantly, so I pray that we would experience a free, full, and fearless life. And that ministry would be propelled by a place of passionate intimacy and worship, full of charisma, full of moxie, full of love.
I'm so excited to be a part of 2 movements that are going on right now. First, the local movement of the Tucson Church, United for Tucson City Psalms. And second, the movement that is going on around the world, Revival in the 1040 Window. And so I want to see my generation, as well as all generations, come together and continue this work that is going on locally and around the world. Let's continue this kingdom work for our King, Jesus Christ.
So in the Bible, God spends a lot of time talking about identity. First of all, who is God? That's an important question. Who are we as God's people? What is the church? What is the identity of the church? It's a big question. Throughout history, the church has tried to live out its identity, and there's been times where, truthfully, we haven't done that well. It's been tragic at times. But the true story, really, of the church is that God has used his community for great good. The church is this living, breathing example of what life in God's kingdom looks like. The church oftentimes has been a creative force for good. The church has been at the forefront of science, of technology, healthcare. The church has found ways to really penetrate culture for good. And so the church has been able to live out that identity. We saw that last week at United for Tucson. How many of you came to that event? Oh, awesome. Over 2,000 Christians joined together to be a physical representation of what God is doing. Such a great story there. 2,000 or more Christians joining together to pray, to worship, and then to watch a documentary about God's history in Tucson. Just as a side note, if you would like a copy of that documentary, they're over here at this table. You can purchase one of those. The City Psalms worship album is also there. And then I want to highlight, you've seen the shirts, but Why I Love Where I Live is an organization. They have some really cool Tucson-themed shirts. Go check those out at the end. So we got to gather together as a family, and that's one of those identities that we have as the church. We are a family. We're crazy, we're diverse, we have multiple ages, races, genders. We are a diverse family. And I love this description out of 1 Timothy chapter 5. This is just a picture of what happens in this family called the church. Paul says, "Do not rebuke an older man, but encourage him as you would a father. Encourage younger men as brothers. Encourage older women as mothers. Encourage younger women as sisters. Do it in all purity." That's a great picture of what happens in a church community, in a family. Older, younger, mutually benefiting, honoring, supporting each other. Today, that's becoming more of a challenge. We live in a culture where not only is culture changing, but technology is changing at rapid speeds. Our world is changing quickly. We live at a unique time in history. Think about this. Think about healthcare. People are living longer, right? So that means that we have a wide range of ages and generations living and working alongside each other. And that's unique. God's doing something there. But the challenge is that oftentimes in these different generations, we disconnect, or we compete, or we just feel misunderstood. And so there's a challenge. How do we as the church remain a family? How do we become unified across generations? How do we work together? How do we listen to each other? How do we honor each other? How do we partner for God's kingdom work across generations? It's a question that we have to address as the church, because culture at large is seeing the need to raise up younger generations and connect them with older leaders. It's a shift that's happening. And so we as the church need to understand our identity. We are a family, and no one gets left behind. So today we're going to talk about the next generation. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes when we think about next generation, we go to college and career. That's definitely part of it. But there's also young professionals. There's also Generation X. There's also younger generations that are younger than me, Generation Z, and all kinds of crazy names. There's the millennials, which are 83 million people that were born between 1980 and 2000. So we're talking about a broad range of people groups and life experiences. I know in my own church, when I start talking about like older and younger generations, some people don't like to think that they're older, and I understand that. But there's this kind of this fear of like, well, wait, are younger people going to change everything? Are they going to leave the older generation behind? Will they overlook us? And I think what we're saying here today is just this. There are a broad range of generations that exist in our world today, and they are different. They connect with God differently. They connect with city life and church differently. But here's what we need. We need each other. We need the younger people in our circles. We need the older and older-ish people. We need people of all generations coming together for God's kingdom work. And that's what we're saying today. So I don't want you to leave here thinking like, oh, it's all about like the young people overtaking things. That's not it at all. What you're going to discover is that younger generations desire to have all kinds of people in their circle. They are desperately reaching out for mentorship and coaching from people who are before them generationally. So we need each other, but there are differences. Let me just highlight a few quick differences. If you know Barna Research, they do studies, they do surveys, they look at sociology and psychology. And so they did a study with millennials, again, people born between 1980 and 2000, and they showed them 4 pictures. And the question was this: which of these 4 pictures best represents what you think the church should be in the world? So you can see there's this small group community kind of around a table in a circle. There's a health club, a gym. There's a hospital. And there's this garden, this flower with being watered. And as you can see by the numbers, millennials, younger people, highlighted these 2 on the ends. They love community. They see the value in people coming together, sharing life together. But they also see that the church can be a force for good in the world, that God calls us to cultivate this world as if it's a garden. And so for those of you who are maybe older or not in this category of age, here's just a few things I want you to think about. Younger generations want to use their life for the good work of God's kingdom. And they want to do it in the church and out of the church. They want to connect their career to their faith, and so give them a launching pad. Give them some resources. Bring them into your church and create a place where they can be creative, where they can think and produce and try out new initiatives. Younger generations respect the potential of organized religion. I don't know if that surprises some of you, because they see that organized religion has great possibility when people come together, but they're also skeptical because they have seen how organized religion can be divisive. They've seen how it can be slow to change and slow to be creative. And so as a church leader, as a ministry leader, give younger people a voice. Let them shape the role that your organization or church is going to have in this world. Lastly, younger people live and breathe with creative technology. My assistant, Jordan, he's in his early 20s, and he has changed my life because he's shown me how to use internet spreadsheets and databases. He's shown me how to use apps on my phone to get more organized and to communicate more clearly. If you're a ministry leader, invite younger leaders into your circle and have them solve problems with their creative technology. So those are my opening statements. We're going to hear from a diverse group of young leaders. We're going to hear from some different perspectives. It's going to be a great day. I pray that God would speak to you through their lives, through their stories. You know what? If you're younger, there are some younger people here. Let me just say something to you. Don't discount the differences in the generations. It's easy to see older generations as maybe closed off to what you want to do. But here's the reality. We need each other. As younger leaders, you need the wisdom, the experience, the resources of those who have come before you. And so work to create a culture of honor. Work to listen. And that's the title of today's topic, listening to the next generation. But it's not just top down, it's back and forth. So we're going to practice a little bit of listening and honoring today. We're going to have a panel discussion. We're going to hear from Jay Klein in just a moment. He's going to talk about a unique initiative in the session, or in the city. We're going to have opportunities for you to ask questions too. So if you have a cell phone, and when I come back up with our panel, my phone number is going to be on the screen. If you have questions about younger generation topics, we want you to chime in. So I'm going to invite Jay. Jay Klein's going to come up and he's going to talk to us about one of his websites called Friends of Every Student. I remember the acronym is FOES, which is fun. So here's Jay Klein.
Thanks. I'm not one of those diverse young people among us, but I work with the diverse young people among us. I've been on staff with Campus Crusade for Christ for 29 years in U.S. and internationally. And I have 2 of these. 1, 2. We'll go with 2. How about that? I see 2 groups of people in Tucson who are desperately in need of each other. One group swarms around a very distinct, concentrated areas of our city. So I see two groups of people. Next, I'm used to kind of clicking through, but I'm going to have to verbally do this. One group swarms around very distinct and concentrated areas of our city, areas that the other group very seldom sets foot in. These are the students who attend our colleges and universities, and there are a ton of them in our city, and very few of us have interactions with them, actually. This group, I'll just call them students. I know it includes non-trads, people who are going back to college. It includes a bunch of people, but we'll call them students. They have a myriad of questions that they're asking. Questions about how life works. Not theoretically, but practically. How does life work for them? And they're making decisions about what they believe, about how they'll live, and they're making those decisions, answering those questions largely on their own. This generation does not have the benefit of having people in their lives who have experiences and wisdom to share with them. An initiative I launched last fall showed that a whopping 82% of them would be willing to consider biblical answers to their questions if they were approached in a particular way. 82% of non-believing students in our city said that they would be interested in considering biblical answers for their questions if they were approached in a certain way. Now, the other group, next slide, is spread out diffusely in our city. They're not concentrated. They're attending various churches, involved in various ministries, leading their homes and families, and living their lives. They're aware of the colleges and universities that they drive by regularly, but they are unconnected with any people on them. This group, I'll just call them kingdom influencers. They have a wealth of experience and wisdom to offer. Wisdom about how life works, not just theoretically, but practically, how life works for them. But they have little opportunity to share that wisdom with the first group. Little confidence that that first group would have any real interest in giving them a hearing. It's my experience that Christian parents have a lot of good input in how to raise infants, toddlers, even teens. But they feel like they don't have much of an idea how to continue influencing their college-age kids. It's my experience that churches and Christian ministries are effective and fruitful at bringing kingdom influence to bear on our city, but college-age people are largely absent from their audience and outside of their reach. Just as one example, last year I connected with Randy. I love people, and I love getting an idea of what they're doing. I connected with Randy Reynolds with Community Renewal, and realized he has some incredibly successful things going on to help people get out of debt, get on a budget, and develop a wealth plan. Our campuses are filled with students who need to get out of debt, get on a budget, and develop a wealth plan, and they know it. But they aren't likely to come across Randy's ministry. My name is Jay Klein. I've been in campus ministry for 29 years, both in the U.S. and internationally. And for the last 9 years, Tucson has become my home. And I've had a growing burden to do some bridge building, to craft a pathway for the wisdom and the life experience of kingdom influencers to be invested into the lives of the emerging adults in our city. It just ought to happen. So if you'll pay attention to the end of the 10 minutes that I have with you, I want to show you some of the things that I found and some of what I built that may enable you to have a significant, lasting impact on the student population. Next slide. Virtual communication. Virtual communication is simply the way that college-age people communicate about what they're really thinking. If a student has a question about life, they simply do not ask their parents or a trusted adult or even their friends. They ask Siri. They ask Google. They ask the web. They ask and listen and watch and read and consider the most important questions in their life virtually. Virtual relationships are far more intimate and personal than face-to-face relationships. Is that crazy? Virtual relationships are far more intimate and personal than face-to-face relationships. Think of it this way. A student who has something important to discuss, something crazy that goes on in their life, will seldom, if ever, contact a friend to get together and talk about it. They simply text or chat or Instagram or Snapchat or tweet or whatever their individual preference is. Their most vulnerable, honest, personal conversations are virtual. Three things are really important here. Students have a wide variety of communication venues to choose from, and they settle into an individual preference that they're comfortable with, which is really hard for us as ministers, because who knows who's on Snap, who's communicating where, but they are in control of what vehicle they use. That's really, really important. Secondly, all platforms are tied to email. Students don't use email. It's not the way they communicate, but all of their platforms are tied to email because your Twitter account or your Snapchat or Instagram require a valid email to set them up. And thirdly, anonymity is key. The ability to view and consider and interact with ideas without identifying themselves is a core value. Next slide. Well, personal connection is simply the way that Christian adults, parents, churches, and ministries communicate. If a kingdom influencer has something to offer, they simply gather people together in a large group or a smaller affinity group, or if it's really personal, in an individualized setting and have the interaction in that meeting. Personal connection is the most effective way to influence people, because of all the intangibles, the tone, the facial expression, immediate feedback, the interaction, all of those come into play. And so an influencer will seldom package what they have to say and give it in little soundbite pieces out to somebody who might want to chew on this little tidbit of information. Instead of doing that, they get together with people and give it to them face to face. The more gut level, delicate, and personal the conversation is, the more important it is that the interaction be face to face. You do not have a phone call or an email conversation with somebody that you need to have a careful, personal, intimate conversation with. The exact opposite of what our young people are doing. What if a pathway, so I've been compelled to wonder what could happen if we could bridge this gap between communication and connection. What if a pathway could be created that communicated with students in a way they were most comfortable with, and connected influencers with them in a way that is most impactful? I'd have to do a couple things. I'd have to engage students in a particular way, a way that prepares them to listen to and to receive from influencers. And then on the other side, I'd have to engage the influencers in a particular way that prepares them to maximize their impact. So here's what I'm building. It's the Every Student Strategy. Let's go to the next slide. It's the Every Student Strategy. It has multiple parts. It's hard to describe in one piece because it's a network and a web of interactions and connections and things. I've tested it this year on Tucson's campuses. That's where I got the 82% response rate of students who are saying, I'd love to talk to somebody if I was approached that way. I've tested it on Tucson campuses and in my church, and I'm presenting it to you for a couple of things. One, for your feedback and your help in crafting it. Second is your involvement in launching it this next fall. So would you take out your phone and get ready to send me a text? So I'm not going to ask for your participation outside of this meeting. I'm asking for your participation in this meeting. So would you take out your phone and start a text to me? If you'd like to, put my name and address, put me in as your contact, but you don't need to put me in as a contact. If you'll just take out your phone and start a text to me at this number, 520-256-1564. And what I'm going to ask you to do is I am going to explain what I am building. And I'm asking you to critique it. Don't worry about being nice or about hurting my feelings. The texting is a perfect medium for blunt communication. So if I talk about something that you're like, that will not work, because I won't do this because of this, I need to know that in order to help this be effective. So I'm asking for your blunt communication about what I'm explaining here. So everybody have my number here. And do it while we're talking. So I'm encouraging you, use your phone, text while I'm talking here. We can all do more things at one time than we think we can. So during the next 3 minutes, I'm going to explain what I'm building. And while I'm talking, please shoot any holes in it that you can. I'd like you to keep this question in mind. Why will this fail if it fails? Where is the fatal flaw? Yes. Thank you. I'm not keeping my 10 minutes? All righty. Okay, so in essence, what I'm building is 2 marketing funnels. A marketing funnel is a series of websites that move to a target audience for awareness. Actually, I will stop doing this, and I will take 1 minute to do this. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is develop 2 marketing funnels. A marketing funnel gives a general idea and says to a population of people, are you interested in this? And then finds out, trains, and helps people move through the funnel to be most interested in that. And so I'm building 2 funnels. The first is everyarizonastudent.com. What I'm saying to the students of our city is, do you have things that you're trying to figure out, and do you want help figuring them out? As they respond to that, we incentivize them, we increase the value of what they're getting by increasing their engagement, and we spit out here a group of students who have said, I know I have some issues, I know I have problems figuring out those issues, I'm really open to getting some input in those issues from people who have something to tell me. I'm ready, show me what you got. The second funnel is friendsofeverystudents.com. This is to all those kingdom influencers that say, hey, do you have something that you want to do? Do you want to influence college-age people? I can show you how to do that. I can put you in connection with them if I can train you and show you how we need to talk with them and engage with them. And we spit out here a group of people who have something to offer and know how to offer it to these people. So we move from this virtual communication to where we're talking to these different groups of people and bring them together to where they can have a personal connection. So that is what I'm building. And our initial offerings are, I'm not going to worry about that. Can we go on to the next 2 or 3 slides? So this is the student portion. Next slide is the Friends of Every Student portion. Next slide. All of this revolves around these principles that need to be placed. There is a way that we can engage with young people that we will get their attention. They will give us our attention. So if you will, text me some issues or problems you see with this, and then if you would like to be a part of crafting that, text me your email. I won't respond to anybody. If you just want to give me some feedback, give me your, just text it to me. But if you'd like to be a part of this piece or this piece, help with crafting and building a bridge to the young people in our city that would be effective in engaging them in personal communications with us, text me your email, and I will fire something to you in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be off and running.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, when Jay showed that to me, I got really excited. And you could see his passion of connecting people like you, kingdom thinkers, with people who would be open to being shaped and influenced that way. So awesome. Thank you, Jay. Connect with him. He'll be over here at the end. I'm going to go ahead and call up our panel. We're going to switch gears a little bit instead of somebody kind of lecturing at us, which is also, that can be good too. We thought it'd be fun to have a panel of unique, diverse leaders for you to hear from. So I have some questions. We're going to interview them. We're going to have a discussion. But if something is sparking in you or you have a question, feel free to text it to me. And we'll have to play around with time a little bit just because our technology got us off on the wrong foot. That's okay. But if you have a question, we might get to them, we might not. But even if you do text me, those questions are really helpful just to hear what's going on from all of you. So I'm going to call up our panel. We got 4 really awesome young leaders, so all of you can kind of come on up, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves as we walk through this panel. All of them live and work here in Tucson. All of them I've met in different capacities, and all of them are highly honored and respected in the circles that they work in. So this is going to be a treat for all of us. I'll take that one. Scoot down one because I got to sit somewhere. Yeah, that's all right. Christopher's a good guy. You can sit next to him. So here's how it's going to work. Well, before we get into questions, let's just get to know each other. Just give me your name, where you work, what you're doing in the city, and maybe give us one reason, like why you love Tucson, why you're passionate about Tucson. I know, get just one. So go ahead, Alexandra.
I'm Alexandra Dormer, and I'm a Tucson native, so I grew up here, went to school here. I'm currently involved in Ministry Resources International as the administrative associate, and I've been attending New Life Bible Fellowship for the last 11 or 12 years, and 2 years ago I became one of the youth group associates, and That is a huge part of my heart. I love working with high schoolers and middle school students, and working really closely with the ladies specifically. I lead a small group with one of our lady leaders. One thing I love about Tucson is the diversity of downtown. Downtown is really close to me, and I love being down there and seeing all the growth that the city is going through. It's definitely centralized a lot downtown. And I'm really, really excited for the things that are in store for Tucson's future.
Hi, everyone. My name's Chris Porter. I work for a company called Smart Things. Quick poll, how many of you knew that Tucson had a Samsung-owned company in downtown Tucson? Raise your hand if you knew that. Cool. Yeah, so we're fully owned by Samsung. We were bought out by them, so we were a Kickstarter, and then got purchased by them. So I work for them, and I live downtown, work downtown. The thing I love about Tucson is one word: community. I've traveled around a little bit, and I love the community that we have. I ride my bike around. I don't have a car, and just waving hi to people, running into people. There's just such a strong community that we have in Tucson, and I want to foster that, make that grow, and my heart's really for mentorship. So,
Amen. My name is Kristen Tovar. First and foremost, I'm raising a family in Tucson, in downtown Tucson, and then I'm also involved in a movement, Why I Love Where I Live, and something else called Cultivate Tucson, which is an annual pop-up market bringing Tucson's designers, makers, and shops all together, which has a high emphasis on community as well. I'm excited about where Tucson is at right now, and I think there's a lot of things I could say that I love about it, but I would say the opportunity right now, just being in Tucson in this period of time is really special and really unique. So.
My name is Micah Lunsford. I am also a native of Tucson and spent most of my life here. I work for Tucson full-time, so I'm behind the scenes working with Dave and Bernadette and all the others. And I love theological reflection, thinking about God's character, about what Christian discipleship is all about. And what I love about Tucson, apart from the sunsets, probably the fact that this is happening. This is sort of a miracle in our room right here, that so many different churches, so many different believers are gathering in collaboration.
So here's a question. These are just statistics, but it's about 82% of U of A graduates leave Tucson when they graduate. So what do you guys think? Is that more of an issue with Tucson? Is that an issue with younger generations? What do you think about that?
So I'm going to say, first and foremost, the job market in Tucson. I think that it's very hard for graduates to feel like they can find and build their career here. I think there's a possibility that that is changing right now. Even with what Chris is doing and where he works, there's more opportunity that's happening. And then the other thing I would think is that the narrative that's told about Tucson, I think, is that this is a place that you'll be here temporarily, like a college town, not necessarily somewhere where you would stay or aspire to be. I don't know very many people that say, I want to end up in Tucson, or I just can't wait to move to Tucson. So I think part of it is also just the narrative that's told about Tucson and that we ourselves kind of share about Tucson.
I definitely agree with that. For myself, I graduated from U of A, from the business college. And when I graduated, I imagined getting to go work for a tech startup in Silicon Valley. And thought that was, Silicon Valley or maybe Seattle. But I love Tucson so much. My family's here. I really didn't want to leave. So I worked in coffee shops for 14 years, and then decided I was going to try and start my own business. And so I think, like Brooke, she was one of the people that talked about, looking around and saying, I don't want to leave. And she started a business with a professor from U of A. And so I think that there's more and more opportunities. Like I've been connected with Startup Tucson downtown, and they're providing opportunities for people to start businesses and entrepreneurs to get connected to each other, and even for people like you to go down and to mentor others that are there. There was a high school kid that was homeless, but clean guy coming in, using the free internet that we had and trying to learn more and just do online study courses, and really was looking for somebody to kind of guide him and help him. So there's lots of opportunities to get connected to stuff.
Or maybe even what would encourage people? I mean, you spoke to it a little bit, but what would encourage people maybe to put down roots? What's some things the city, the church, I don't know. What could we do to encourage people to stay longer? I mean, I heard narrative and changing the story, but can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think millennials by nature want to fill in gaps and seeing where their place is in any community that they're in currently. So putting that offer out there for them, or offering a need that a ministry or a part of the community has, I think a millennial is definitely willing to go into that area, even though they may not know much about the subject, but willing to learn and be led through that and have a part in building that up.
Cool. Let's switch gears a little bit. What are some of the questions or some of the topics, maybe theologically? Think about church, think about faith, spirituality. What are some of the questions that maybe younger generations, millennials, whatever, what are some of the questions that they're asking or they're passionate about maybe? So that's even kind of more for Micah because he likes theology, but yeah, you can hear from all of you. Yeah, what are they thinking about? What kind of topics are there?
There's a myriad of things probably, and they're unique to each individual, obviously. But I think as a young person, there's a lot of change. There's a lot of identity questions, just natural from being younger. What will I be, or what will the world look like? How do I find my place in the world? What is God like? How does he fit into my life, if at all? I think there's just a ton of questions, and I think the questions are good, actually, because when you're asking questions, you want to hear, you want a conversation, you're looking, you're searching. So, and this isn't quite answering the question per se, but jumping off of it, if I could encourage the church and the older leaders in the church, is that really welcome the questions and don't give cliche answers or trite answers. If you don't know the answer, just be okay not knowing the answer, because we can pick up on the BS. And to be honest, I probably would not be Christian today. I probably would not be sitting here today if my dad hadn't taken all the questions and not given me trite answers back. So.
I would say also, how does culture intersect with our faith? I think growing up, I was kind of taught as a Christian, like, stay out of culture, protect yourself from culture. And now I'm realizing how unbiblical that is. We have a God that is powerful and that is stronger than sin and the brokenness in this world. And so we need to be engaging in that. And so I think one big thing for me and maybe all of us is just, how do we engage with culture, and how does our faith impact and influence our work, our relationships, how we view our city, those types of things.
Here's something from a text. What are some questions that, or maybe even topics, but what are some questions that older generations maybe aren't asking, that should be asking, specifically with thinking about generations and gaps between generations? It's a good question.
I think the people that I encounter, it's very pragmatic. Like, what they're dealing with is like right here, right now. So I'm 36 and I'm dealing with a lot of 20-year-olds, 18, 24-year-olds, and they're like, I just got offered another position somewhere else, or I'm looking for something else. What do you think I should do? And I have to give them well, I'm coming from this perspective of God in my life, and so I try to let them know the difference in my life and their life, and that my perspective is influenced by God in my life, and because of that, here's my advice. And so they're very often looking for just the, like, where do I go? What should I do? And sometimes it's like, how am I even being invited into your life this much to like I'm not your dad, like I'm not like part of your family, like why are you asking me this question? So I think they tend to be very pragmatic questions, like what do you think I should be doing? And so if you can be involved in their life, even to a small degree, like they'll be very open to asking a lot of questions, more than I would feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think an often underestimated question is the rhetorical question to a millennial, and answering a question for them is probably not the worst thing you could do, but it's not productive for them. And I think a misconception about millennials is that they're very shallow, when in reality their thought processes are full of depth, and they like to think through things and figure out problems and struggle through questions that they may not know the answers to, but answer questions alongside other people.
Yeah. How do younger generations approach evangelism? So it's that church word, but what does it look like for younger people to share the story of Jesus, to welcome people into that kingdom? What does evangelism look like? How have you seen that? How have you struggled with that?
So in my limited experience, I think relationship matters a great deal to at least me, and I think many of my peers. So it's not as though a kind of cold contact can't have its place, or kind of street evangelism doesn't have its place. It does. God has worked through that to change lives, and he calls some people to do that. But I think, at least for me in my experience, the concept of evangelism outside of relationship is a kind of, doesn't make sense.
I agree with that, and I would also add authenticity is kind of an overused word, but as far as evangelism goes, if I'm going to share the love of Christ with people that don't know him, if I'm not involved or showing that my life is changed or different, back to engaging in culture, if I'm not actually caring about my city or the things that are happening in it, the brokenness, speaking life into it, if I'm just sitting inside church walls, to me, evangelism can't happen. There has to be some level of people seeing the difference that Christ in our lives can make.
So along with being authentic, I think another piece is being vulnerable. They know that we're not perfect, very clearly not. And so the times when I have been able to share, like sometimes they're angry, or they're displaying like really strong, like I completely disagree with you, and being able to show them love, but also like, hey, I'm not perfect either. Like I've made this failing. Like I'm no different from you. It's just, Jesus has grace, and he wants to give grace for you in this situation too. So authenticity and vulnerability.
Good. Okay. What are younger generations looking for in a church community experience? What are they looking for in church in regards to worship or just community? Like what might be some differences between the way we do church maybe and maybe previous generations? What energizes you about a church experience?
My heart is community. Being involved in people's lives, my roommate and I had a movie night. So every other week we'd invite people over, we'd cook dinner, and people would come over, and sometimes people would bring food, sometimes they were just eating our food. And that living out life together is when opportunities to, you broke up with your girlfriend, or you went out partying last week because you're really struggling with this thing going on, tell me more about it. And so being interested in their life And it's through the community and through that deep relationship that then they open up and they go like, wow, like your life is different. Like why? And then you can share with them, hopefully life is different, and then you can tell more about that.
I would agree with that, and just add a little note. And first of all, I just got to say thank you to all of you who lead church communities, because that's a really hard thing to do at times. And anyway, just thank you. But that's a big question. But if you're going to think about it, I think younger people want to be missional. They want their life to have purpose and meaning. They're really, or at least I feel like in general, they're not very okay with the superficial. So if the mission of the church descends to a social club, it's not interesting. Social friendship behavior is great, but it has to have purpose beyond that. It has to be Christ in real ways in the world. And so a mission is something to live and die for. Actually, to die for and in a very literal sense, is it worth dying for is the question. And I think this is where the church should and can and does find its greatest strength, because it is a mission worth dying for.
All right, last thought for all of you. If you want to comment on that, you can. But just give us one quick tip of how generations can connect together. Maybe it's we've already said, repeat that, but what would it look like in Tucson for generations to connect together? Give us a few quick thoughts.
I would say encouraging each other and providing hope. So, especially in Tucson, I think there's a lot of a defeated attitude about our city or about the future. And so I think we can encourage and help each other by reminding each other that God can do all that we ask or imagine, and that God's kingdom will be brought to Tucson, and that we can partner together to do that.
We love genuine authenticity and vulnerability, and sharing that with other people in community. Community is kind of that cornerstone word, I think. We just want to do that with other people. We want to share our lives together with everyone in our church community in the city. And so I would just encourage someone to have an open heart when it comes to approaching a relationship, and being willing to not hold anything back, and being authentic, being real in our conversations, and kind of that whole don't be cliche. Yeah.
Cool. Just to close, so typically what we do is we usually reserve time where we can kind of talk at tables and pray together, and so we kind of fudged on that a little bit today, and that's okay. But let me just give a few closing thoughts. Somebody, let me find where did that go? Somebody texted in, I thought this was really great. So far we've been talking mainly what seems about upper middle class, maybe kind of culture. They asked, what about younger generations in Tucson who are struggling with poverty or who are marginalized? I think that's a great question. We didn't really address that up here, and that's maybe not our expertise, but I would say that's a great question that we should address. Get connected with Tucson Refugee Ministry. Get connected with some of the people at TUSD who work with homeless youth. Get connected with some of the organizations like Breakdown Tucson, who's here today. They reach out to kids who are struggling. It's not just one section of the city that we're talking about. Some of the things I just kind of heard were younger generations are really looking for meaningful connection and friendship and partnership. Sometimes it's easy to think that they don't want that, but just know that they do. And so be vulnerable. Be willing to take that first step and say, hey, I want you to be a part of this circle. Moses raised up a Joshua. Do you have a Joshua underneath you that you're training, that you're having lunch with, that you're mentoring, that you're coaching, that you're just befriending? They're hungry for that connection, but they're also hungry to see their gifts and their talents matter for God's kingdom, and so capitalize on that. I think that the key word today is listen. If we can begin to listen to each other, we're going to see and catch what God is doing in the lives of not only the younger people, but those who come before us. So listen to those little things that God is stirring and follow those where they lead. Invite people into your circle. Reach out. Go places you haven't gone. All of them, their contact information is on your table. Send them a text. Send them an email if you want to know more. But we are going to close in prayer. I on that same contact form on the back, I had some discussion questions. For the sake of time, we're not going to get there. But take that with you and look at those discussion questions and really maybe process them this week and think about what God might be calling you to in the city and how you can raise up and encourage younger generations. So I'm going to invite Andrew Tang up here. He's just going to tell us a little bit about him, and he's going to pray for us.
Thanks, Dustin. Hi guys, my name is Andrew Tang. I am involved here as well, just in various ministry circles. I've met a lot of you. I won't get into all of those details because it's complicated. I do want to say from the start that from those various ministry circles, I've either met and interacted with or at least heard of all five of these guys at length, even before meeting some of them. And I want to thank you guys for what you're doing in the community, for the impact that you have. It goes far beyond what any of us even think and imagine. So thank you guys, if you will. And I know for a fact, and I'm sure you guys can testify to that, we are here because we ride on the shoulders of giants that came before us, and none of us would be up here. None of us would be doing the things that we're doing if it hadn't been for many of you and influences beyond that. Actually, coincidentally, I'm here with my buddy Sam Partain, works with Young Life. When I was a freshman in college, 7 years ago now, kind of took me under his wing and not only discipled me, but sort of invited me into his life as well. And so for all of you that have mentored, that have discipled, that have invited people our age, people younger than us, into your lives, thank you as well. So with that, I'll close this in prayer, and we'll get out of here. Heavenly Father, thank you for what you're doing in the city of Tucson, that you are building a unified church of young and old, of all different ethnicities, of all different socioeconomic lines, Lord. And we pray that even further, you would break down barriers, that you would equip us, the younger generation, with the humility to listen, to seek out the wisdom of the people that have gone before us, and to know that we are following in very powerful and hefty footsteps. And Lord, for the rest of those that came before us, I pray for a similar spirit of humility, the humility, though, to lead, to teach, and to take what they've established and allow it and surrender it to you, to transform, to create new things, to build new sort of movements here in the city. But most of all, Lord, we pray and we submit ourselves to a spirit of unity and to collaboration that you're doing here in the city. We praise you, and we lift up the rest of this day to you. In your name, amen.
Have a great day. Thanks for all the texts. I will read those and maybe even respond to some great questions. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but keep asking those questions to the younger leaders, even in your own life. All right, blessings, everybody.